My name is Ben Evans. I'm part of the team for Feed the Hungry. We are all over the world. I'm from Australia. I look after Australia and New Zealand. But today I am very excited to be talking with Debs from Child Action Lanka. It's a pleasure to be here. Say hello, Debs.
Hi, Ben. Really nice to have you.
This is just a casual conversation between two friends in Child Action in Sri Lanka. So we're in Kandy, which is, I kind of say, the middle of the country, to the south. But how long has Child Action Lanka existed? And tell me a little bit about the charity here.
Right. So we are on our 16th year now, and we started out in Kandy. So Kandy is pretty much our headquarters, where we started working with street-connected kids, and we started with 8 kids. Today we work with nearly 2,000 kids across the country.
Wow, 2,000 children.
And we are in 8 different districts across the island.
Yeah.
And basically what we do is we do education, health and nutrition, child protection. And I believe that these are the 3 components that then create a holistic child. So that's where we are going towards.
So 16 years, did you start it from scratch or did you take over someone else's organization?
So there was a lady who was a school teacher, and she used to teach English to 8 kids on the street. And I was really inspired by what she was doing and wanted to help her. But guess what? She then said, I was leaving the country. Do you want to take over? It was a long story because I had a long battle.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure that this is what I was called to do, if you want to say.
Yeah.
But I think God's been really faithful over the years, and we ended up taking over these 8 kids. Before we knew, it grew to 30 kids.
Yeah.
From there it went to 80 kids. And suddenly we felt like we were drowning in the middle of it all because we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. We thought we were coming in to help 8 kids.
Yeah.
And the journey has been amazing, but every step of the way, I think it's been like where, we had Nuwara, another city, call up and say, hey, we've heard about what you're doing here. Is there any possibility you can bring the same project to our city?
Yeah.
And so we started there, and it's been the same for every other place we've started, and we still keep getting these calls for new places. And it's just, I think, being able to see and play a small part in transforming the life of a child is what has really been our go for it all.
Yeah, okay. So there are different centres that are across the nation that are reaching out to you for help to take over. So what is it that they hear or know about Child Action Lanka that makes them want to work with you in that way?
I think they hear of the stories of children's lives being transformed. So for us, the vision of Child Action Lanka is to have a future of equality and well-being for every child. And when we talk about equality and well-being, I've got 2 of my own children, and I know what I can give them. And it's almost always comparing what is it in terms of a child who we call street or who we call underprivileged. What is it that they don't have? What are the opportunities that they're missing out because of the kind of lifestyle that they've been born to? And obviously it's not their fault, that they were in that background or setting. So it's a process of creating that kind of equality for them. And I think what's happened is that people have seen the stories that have come out of Child Action Lanka, where children have gone from being completely street connected, living on the streets, not having anything, to then having a life of fulfillment, of where they've gone on to, not just, earning heaps of money. Yes, that's happened, but also becoming a better person, becoming a proper citizen of the country, being able to serve, being able to do so much more, being able to live their best life. So we've had kids who've gone on to, becoming nurses, teachers, architects, so many things, I think, over the years. But most of all, being able to see a child going from, living on the streets to not going back to that place, but being able to then be able to contribute to society, being able to be a better person. I think that's kind of the story that's gone out there, because these kids, I'm not I'm not trying to brag about what Child Action Lanka does, and I'm sure if it wasn't CAL, it would have been somebody else. But the thing is that these kids, if not for any assistance, would probably be the next set of gangsters, would have probably been the next set of, you know, the next mafia in town, the next set of beggars, the next set of prostitutes, the next set of drug addicts, because that is the background they came from, and that's all they've seen their adults in their community do.
Yeah.
And so we've been able to come in and show a different kind of life.
It's amazing. I love hearing about the work that you're doing here at Debs. So you've got almost 2,000 children across the nation. What kind of age groups are they? You know, how young and how old? And can you tell me a little bit about what you do on a day-to-day basis with the children?
Right. So we've got drop-in centers across the country. So in the districts that we work, we have a drop-in center. Some of them are owned by us, some of them are rented by us. But at these drop-in centers, what we have is all of them have a preschool. The Candy one actually starts with a creche. So we've got tiny babies there as well. And then with the babies, the whole plan is, you know, to be able to take a baby in so that the mom can go out and work instead of seated and begging on the street. But with preschoolers, they're all completely free of charge. Kids come in there. It's not only preschool because they also have daycare. So the kids can come and stay with us while the parents go out and work. And then we provide them with a breakfast. And then after that, the kids who then go on to, they also have lunch. But then when they start going into main school, then they go grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, but they come back to us in the afternoon. So they come really hungry in the afternoons, come out for food.
Yeah.
It's most of these kids, this is like the only meal that they would get.
Okay.
So what we try to do is make sure that it's a well-balanced, nutritious meal. It is taken care of by a nutritionist who looks through everything, make sure that the kids are getting the best, exactly what's needed for them. And then the kids have different educational programs. Sometimes it's also counseling programs, therapeutic programs, because a lot of the kids do need it. And then after that, they have other activities such as sports, drama, all these kind of things to kind of bring out a sense of self-esteem, self-worth, a platform for them to be able to contribute and do something different as well. So at our centers, we have all these programs. But one of the things that is kind of cross-cutting across what we do is the fact that a lot of these children, I would say more than 90% of them, come from very, very troubled backgrounds. I think I was sharing some of the stories with you yesterday. But because of that, they are in need of a lot of child protection, advocacy, dealing with them, with their situations in courts, in police. And so because of that, I think we've got a really good team who goes out there and who does that, handling the families, their community as well, but also representing them and representing their voice out there. Because of, you know, I think partly it's children, and partly it's because of their upbringing. They wouldn't be heard out there if an organization didn't advocate on their behalf. So because of that, the centers also do things like that for the kids.
You're doing so much and so many amazing things, and it's our privilege to be working with you. I just think I call myself the voice for the hungry people, you know, because not everyone, you know, we are blessed in Australia. There are troubles, always in troubles. In the Western countries that we come from, America, Europe, you know, we have generally a good life, but there are so many people around the world who do not have enough food to eat. So we want to get food into the hands of our friends like Child Action Lanka, into your hands, so that we can get food into the hands of children, so that they can have a full life. You know, we see the idea of a hot meal, a nutritious meal, provided in a school environment, is such a critical part of their best future. Like, I know I cannot concentrate without on an empty stomach, so I need regular, frequent meals. And I just think about children who are trying to study. I think most people know how important education is. But I was hearing stories here that in Sri Lanka, the education system sometimes is geared towards after-school tuition. So even if you go to school, you may not get a complete education, a complete understanding, because it's a little bit like, look, I'll teach that to you later, but it'll cost you a little bit extra.
That's
so
true.
I guess in a sense, when children come to Child Action Lanka centres, you're trying to fill in those gaps and build their education. So how is that going?
Yeah, so I mean, if you have the money and you can pay for extra tuition class, great. But if you don't have the money, you're probably going to end up with half the syllabus, and you still have to face the same exam. And it's not enough to, I think, emphasize that these kids are not, they don't have the greatest upbringing. They haven't had parents who are really interested in their education. I think, in a normal upbringing, we kind of do try to support our kids with education, but these parents haven't studied and they don't know the importance of it. We've had parents who have come up to us in tears because now their children can read and the parents still can't read. And, I had a mom who said, my child actually read the list. And I was like, yeah. But it also made me realize how much we take for granted, because these kids are going to have to face the same exams that every other child does. And, what are their chances of passing? What are their chances of then employment thereafter? So, yes, that's important. But like you were saying, I think the whole feeding thing is of utmost importance. Now, me, my naivety, I've gone into like centers in Batiklo. And I remember the first time we went in there, I was just trying to, catch a conversation with the kids. So I was like asking them, what did you eat? And they all gave me this blank look. And I said, well, okay, what did you have for dinner last night? And they still looked at me. And then, the person who took me there said, can you stop asking that? Because they haven't eaten in 2 days.
Wow.
So I think, not having a meal is hard, but these kids, if not for the amazing support that you give us, I don't think we'd be able to do, the kind of meals that we do, because the kids, during these times especially, a lot of the kids come, yes, education is something that we try to kind of force down their throat like a medicine, because we know it's good for them.
Like vegetables.
Yeah, but the food is like one of the main reasons they do come. And some of them, even now, they walk so many kilometers coming to the center in tough conditions. And we all know what the Sri Lankan conditions are right now. But the reason they come is because, they know that they're going to have that meal. And for them, that meal means everything, because when they go back home, they're probably not going to have a meal. Till they come back the next day, they're not going to have a meal either. So right now, I think the kids that we see in the centers, they're coming just because of the meal.
Yeah, such great despair for children here in Sri Lanka and in many places around the world who don't know where their next meal's coming from. So when a program like we have here in Child Action Lanka and many other around the world are providing consistent, nutritious meals, it really provides stability for these children and gives them a sense of security and a desire to have a future. And I love the idea that we are building futures here in Sri Lanka through Child Action Lanka. We talk about a full life, and it starts with the food, because, well, hungry bellies have no ears. So I don't care what you're saying, I just need to eat first.
Yeah.
So we start with the meal, then we look at their education, but there's also that third part, which starts with emotions. You've talked a little bit about some of the backgrounds that these children are coming from, but we know that there is only real peace that comes from Jesus. Now we're in a mainly Buddhist country, but what in general, what is their attitude to people living in poverty? Is there much help from the government? Are there other organisations that are helping them that are Buddhist organisations and the like? What's the situation for an ordinary person on the street here?
Generally, I mean, people who want to help, they would help because they believe they're going to get something in return, some merit. Maybe, some of their sins, some of the wrongdoings are going to be reduced because they've done something good. But if not, the general concept is that, okay, these guys have done something really bad in their last life, so they're only paying for it in this life. And that's something that we should not be messing around with. So let them go through the suffering, and maybe they'll make it to a better state in their next life. So I've had that being told on many occasions when I approach people, why are you trying to mess with their karma? Why are you trying to mess with their destiny?
Karma, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a very strong belief here. And because of that, I think people kind of, in a certain sense, they desensitize themselves to, suffering, and trying to help people who are in hunger. And yeah, you're in hunger, but you have to go through this so that you'll have something better next time. You're not going to be in this situation is kind of a very common belief.
Yeah, it was reminded the kind of overarching philosophy that life is suffering and you can't escape
That's
it.
right.
You must go through it.
Yeah.
But it was a shock to my Christian upbringing to hear that idea of this is a person that is struggling and in poverty, but I shouldn't help them now because I'm actually making things worse for their next life.
That's right.
Whereas I think that we have a biblical responsibility really to respond to this injustice of hunger and do it now.
Yeah.
And so it's so important for us as Christians that when we see need, that we respond with compassion and with acts of kindness, and that we can make a difference now. We can provide hope to them. So can you maybe share the kind of hope that you are sharing with the children?
I think for us, in the local context, it's really hard to do a Bible study or share from the Bible and say Christ died for you, etc. But for us, the hope that we can give them is this is Christ's action in love, Christ's action of love. We're taking God's love out to you, and I know the children. They know that there is a sense of stability coming here. We've seen the most troubled kids coming into a sense of stability, just knowing that these guys are dependable. They've promised they are going to stand to their word, and because of that, I feel like though we can't preach, I mean, our actions speak much louder than that. And that's something that we've been able to take from place to place. We've been able to take it into cities. We've been able to take it into communities that I'm sure, and no offense, but if we took a Bible out there and went and tried to say God loves you, we get chased out of there big time.
Yeah.
We take food out there and go and say God loves you.
Yeah.
They accept us with open arms.
I think it's attributed to Francis Assisi, and he said, preach the gospel at all times, and if you absolutely have to, use words.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? So we demonstrate our love. And I think that's the thing, the God that we serve is alive. He's not dead. He's still alive, and he's still involved in our day. And that's what I love about working with Feed the Hungry, is that we, in a really practical sense, we're helping to answer prayers of children who don't know where their next meal's coming from, who are literally praying the Lord's Prayer, give us today our daily bread. And
True.
I just love that we can help be a part of that we are answering. We are like Jesus' hands and feet.
Yes.
And even more so, Debs and the fantastic team at Child Action Lanka are really the hands and feet. And so it's always my privilege to travel, because I get to hear all the thank yous from the children and from the team that are supporting them. And I get to take them back to my friends in Australia and New Zealand and around the world to say, without your support, the lives here in Sri Lanka would be so much more difficult. Their end would be so much worse.
Yes.
And it's part of the team. And so I appreciate you being part of the team, part of the Feed the Hungry team. I always see you as part of the team. You are definitely part of the team here. But you were talking about children who kind of have difficult lives. And so we're actually filming here at a place that you've called a shelter. So can you tell us a little bit about where we are?
Yeah, so during the first lockdown, during COVID time, there were these kids who were living on the street, all little kids below the age of 13. And they do have parents, but not parents who actually are connected to the kids. So the kids kind of lived a lot on their own, spending a lot of time on the streets. And during lockdown, the police actually wanted them off the streets. And they wanted to put them into orphanages and different places, but nobody actually wanted to take them because they were very street connected, very raw off the streets. And the kids then opted to saying, hey, can we go and stay at the center? Because we're used to the center. And that was the first time we were thinking, okay, so we're going to do residential because the kids had nowhere else to go. So we got down mattresses. Teachers started taking rosters to stay with the kids. We got down teachers from other centers who were very gracious and said, yes, we'll stay with the kids. And so we did that. And the kids, they came and it was tough. And there were moments I thought, what on earth have we got ourselves into? They would lock the staff up inside. They would get out. They would be, oh my goodness. It was crazy. But now, like after the whole lockdown was over, they obviously had the option to go back to their life on the streets.
Yeah.
They would do bartering. Also, they would get caught for, drug trafficking. Some of them were sold as, little children out for prostitution and things like that. And for us, I think, we had a very open mind when we started it out because it was a response to the whole lockdown process. So, but when we asked the kids, what do you want to do? And none of them wanted to go back. Obviously, they enjoyed the security and enjoyed being a child for once, where they didn't need to worry about how to get their next meal, because some of them would go selling little calendars on the street so that they could then buy fried rice and share with their brothers and sisters. Some of them would be, trading drugs here and there so that they can get some money and give their parents, and the parents would be really tough on them if they didn't bring the money, and it would be like, it was just to feed their alcoholic habits or whatever. And for this one time, the kids could just enjoy being kids, not having to worry about what was out there. And I remember, then when we moved, because the centers were opening, we had to move into a house, which is this one where we are at. And the kids then coming and seeing their beds, and they said, oh, we've got a bed now. And this means, I'm not a street child anymore. And this one little girl, she held my hand and said, you're giving me a bed? So now people will think I'm not from the street. And I was thinking, what are the things that define you? And it's not the most luxurious place. It's not like we can give them everything. But I think that sense of security, just knowing that they've got their basic needs met, that sense of love, care. And we've seen complete transformation of these kids. I sometimes worry that we've taken out the naughtiness of these little kids who came out to us as absolute little monsters. Their lives are so changed. And these are all kids who came from, Buddhist backgrounds, Muslim backgrounds, Hindu backgrounds. And, now, because of, where they're at, these kids are now praying. They're reaching out to God and they're saying, we prayed for you. They come into office sometimes, meet me and say, we were praying for you. And I was like, that means a lot. Not because they started praying, but just to know that, this child is looking to Christ. And it came with no words. And I think that's what the shelter is all about.
We came here yesterday and you were introducing the children, and there's a set of twins here.
Yes.
That being children. So you were talking about children being children. So tell the story for my friends.
Yeah, so the twins, identical twins, grew up with us at the center. I think we made the mistake because when they were babies and they came to us, we used to have a thread tied around one so we can identify. Yes. But still the staff, in all that rush and firefighting, they'd end up bathing the same baby twice. The other one wouldn't get bathed at all. Things like that. But now, these guys, they know that they can play tricks on us. So because of that, they're always like pretending to be each other. They get each other in mischief. They'd appear through the same door twice, take extra pieces of cake off. But it's just, we really enjoy having them, and we've had them since they were babies at our center first, but now they're here. And it's sad because their older sister is on the streets and she's gone into a completely different life. She's dropped out of school. She's into a lot of prostitution kind of thing. And she's not very old, she's about 14. And just to know that we've been able to safeguard these kids. She's got so much into it, she doesn't want to get out of it. But being able to help these kids and help them with their education, make sure that their education is being followed through, making sure that these kids live a better life. I think I feel really, really privileged. And I always tell our team, and I think we've got an amazing team. We wouldn't be able to do half of what we're doing if not for this team. Half, I think, full.
I mean, sorry, you're talking about your amazing team, and it was always a delight to me to go to the different centres and meet a staff member or a volunteer who was actually a student before, who's come back to help put into the community that helped them.
That's right.
I think that's a credit to what you're doing here.
Wow.
It's amazing. And
I'm always touched when they decide to do that, and there's no pressure and no expectation of them to have to, but it's amazing when they do. But I think what I always tell them at every meeting is, don't forget that we've got this amazing privilege to be the front row audience into the lives of these kids, to watch their lives being transformed. And yes, if we can play a tiny role in making that happen, I said that's only a privilege, so don't take that for granted. And I think that's the chance we have even with the kids here at the shelter, just watching their lives change. I don't know whether it's good that the naughtiness has got out, or whether maybe it's hidden in there. And, but just seeing their lives change, seeing their transformation, I think it's just...
I think maybe your husband, Pastor Dilshan, used the phrase first, but you have some backbenchers. And I really like that phrase, but it's this idea. Can you speak to us about how every child is important and that everyone deserves a chance at a full life?
So one of the very strong values that we have and the beliefs that we have is that, these children, the situations they were born into or the upbringings that they've had is not their fault. But I think every child, what we say is that every child needs to have a second opportunity to be able to have a life equal to another child. And why should it be any different for this child compared to that one? Why should this little girl have a different life compared to my little girl? It's not her fault. And so because of that, every center, we have this whole process where kids get screened through, and they have a whole 360 review system where it takes into account what they do, where they're at right now, where do they want to go, what can we as a center do to help them get to that point in creating equality for them. If our little kids said, I want to become this, I want to become that, I think as parents we're going to try to make that happen. And if these kids, if they were to go to their parents and say, the parents would say, don't be crazy. And why diminish their dreams? So I think we want to create that sense of equality. You can be what you want to be, and we're going to try and help. And it's been the grace of God in the last 16 years. It truly has been amazing because we've seen this happen. Kids only had to talk about it. They only had to dream. It happened. So.
It's awesome. So we've been here all week, and part of the daily chore is looking for gas. So perhaps for those who haven't been following the news too closely, can you talk a little bit about what's going on in the country right now?
Right, so it's been happening over about 4 months, 4 or 5 months now. But the country's political and economic crisis has reached its peak. And I think it's something that was happening over the last 70 years, but has gathered more momentum over lockdown. Things like milk, which we thought was a basic need for a child, has become a luxury. They're not going to be able to have it anymore. There's loads of families. Like the other day, a mum, she saw me and she said, I can't remember the last day I had milk in my tea. And so you know how important the cup of tea is in Sri Lanka. But not being able to have basic things. It's a hard, tough time right now.
So, just talking with people while I'm here, and it's like, even if the right person got in charge and made all the right decisions today, it's still going to take a while to fix the problems.
It's going to take years.
So it's like, it's the despair is very evident, and we've driven past kilometres of cars and trucks that are waiting for their petrol, and the rare times that we would see gas actually at the station, then like seagulls,
Yep.
everyone rushes to the front of the queue to get their things, and you can feel and you can see the tension.
That's right.
And our driver, John, just saying, I'm just getting so fed up with it because we spend half a day every day looking for gas, and we appreciate the opportunity, recognising that tourists and tourism is helping, so they've prioritised gas. So we've been able to travel all over the country, and it's been a delight. It is a beautiful place, and please make plans to travel to Sri Lanka. I'll do an ad for Sri Lanka tourism. It is a beautiful place filled with beautiful people, and the sights here is just amazing. And I've had a really great time seeing the places here. But in the midst of all this darkness and despair, Feed the Hungry has come together to send some food packs to people. So can you talk a little bit about what we're doing and where we're doing it?
Yeah, so thank you ever so much for deciding to step up and support us at this time. We've been able to, with the donations that you raised so far, we've been able to bring in food packs for about 1,000 families.
Yeah.
And yesterday, the team went out to distribute some of the packs, and they returned about 10 o'clock in the night.
Wow.
But when I spoke with them at that time, they said, the look it brought on people's faces, and I'm sure you're going to see pictures of
Excellent.
it when we go today. But it was so much hope, and it was irrelevant of their caste, it was irrelevant of their religion, it was irrelevant of where they were, because we went into some of the most rural places up in the north central, up in the west coast, to be able to distribute this. And just people being able to see God's love in action, because they were not all Christians, but they knew this was a Christian backed team that was coming in here. And I think at this time, when people out there saying, who's going to give me to eat? Here we are going out there into those places saying, look, here's your food, God bless you. And I think that speaks so much more, being able to get into those communities, being able to serve these people at a time like this. And I can't thank you enough for choosing to support us at a time like this. And I know it's for you're thinking, okay, we just sent a donation out there, but for these guys here, it's life-changing. And I'd just like to say a huge thank you to Feed the Hungry for choosing to support Sri Lanka at a time like that. I know Australia supported Sri Lanka with the whole cricket, and Sri Lankans were obviously very grateful. We all are, but at the same time, just in very practical ways, saying, I'll give you food when you're hungry, speaks so much more. So thank you for supporting all these 1,000 families out here. And I think we're going to be looking to do more of this, but thank you ever so much.
It's a pleasure. I think I should ask you, how can we pray for Sri Lanka in a second, but I think it's so important that whenever you give to God's work financial money, it's so important that you not only give the money, but you also pray over it. I think praying over your seed is what really makes the difference. I like to think of it as, it's not just an earthly transaction. You may swipe your credit card and you pay for a good or something like that. But when you pray over it, you make a conscious decision to get God involved. And you're asking God, let my money stretch, let it multiply, let more people be fed than what would ordinarily be done. Let my donation, my offering, change people's lives. So just in more general sense, but how can we pray for the team and for Sri Lanka?
Thanks so much. I think for us right now, that strength that comes from prayer is the most important. So I think praying for strength for the team. We're constantly having to think out of the box. We've never thought so differently. Just in everything we've done over the last 16 years, everything's being challenged right now. So we've got to constantly think, how are we going to get education out to the kids? How can we get this food out to the kids? If the kids can't come to us, how can we get to them? Yes, the buses are very limited. So, are we going to walk? Are we going to be able to carry these things walking? every little thing has become a think out of the box kind of exercise. So just strength for the team to be able to continue doing that. During this time when the country is going through this, I think people are losing their sense of hope, and so just praying that God will bring hope to them, especially for those who, for those who can leave the country and they've decided to leave. They probably are going, with new hope and a renewed sense of what they want to do.
Yeah.
But for those who feel really stuck at this time, I think they need God's hope and just more than what life can just show them right now, and just knowing that God's in control of things. In terms of CAL is looking to do so much more, because I feel like over the 16 years, God's kind of built what it is today for such a time as this, and I think this is the time that we're going to have to step up into a greater sense of responsibility, and that's what I sense God saying. And so we are trying to muster up our muscles to step into this role, and appreciate your prayers.
Well, thank you, Debs. I really appreciate speaking with you today. It is always a delight. I love Sri Lanka. It's been a beautiful time. It was 10 years since I was here last time. I'm just admitting this, and obviously this is too long. But it's so great for us to come here and see the work and bring these stories, bring these photos, bring these joy back to the supporters, Australia and New Zealand, all over the world. I really believe in teamwork, and we can all work together and do those things. So thank you, Debs. I love what you're doing here through Jesus Christ to change the lives of children all over this nation.